America's election headquarters in depth tonight. New Hampshire's drug crisis. Geraldo Rivera tells us it is the #1 issue as the presidential race comes to the state.
Sir, did you use heroin today?
With over 400 overdose deaths last year alone in New Hampshire, one a day, this state is obviously in the throes of an extraordinary epidemic. Some of these victims are as young as 15 years old, and they all end up here in the state morgue.
Every month, we lose dozens of our fellow citizens. Our families lose their loved ones. Our businesses lose valuable workers. Our future shrinks before us.
To New Hampshire Governor Maggie Hassan, this is the most urgent issue in the Granite State.
We have lost over 400 Granite Staters in 2015 to drug overdoses, and that's just a staggering statistic, no matter how many times we say it.
20-year-old Matt Sowers sits behind bars facing felony drug and burglary charges. And he's one of the lucky ones. At least he's alive.
My mom actually saved my life.
How so?
I overdosed in her bathroom, and she heard my head fall and hit the floor, and just came to check on me out of giggles. And when I didn't answer, she opened the door, and I was on the ground, like seizing, convulsing, not breathing, and she gave me CPR until the EMTs got there, and they saved my life. But essentially, it was her who saved my life.
So now your mom lives with that image of you.
And it kills me every time I think about it.
Veteran cop Jack Riley has seen it all, but the DEA's deputy administrator has never seen it this bad.
New England really, I think, is ground zero to a certain extent when you see the amount of increased abuse and, unfortunately, overdose.
According to an important University of New Hampshire poll, for the first time in 8 years, a plurality of Granite Staters think drug abuse is the most important problem facing the state, more than jobs, the economy, or taxes.
The mother was in last week and telling me that, she walked into a bedroom on a Friday and her 16-year-old son was in bed with a needle in his arm, and certainly that's something that really goes after your heart.
I was using 4 grams a day just to not be sick anymore.
Abby Lazat carried Parker, her baby, to term. Both mother and child high on heroin.
So I could, feel my child moving in my belly and knowing that he was going through the same thing that I was going through. And I just felt so helpless because the only thing I knew what to do about it was to keep using because that's the only thing that made me feel better.
Abby was homeless, pregnant, and addicted when nurse Carrie Norton gave her shelter. Outside what will become, with funding, the Hope on Haven Hill Recovery Center for women like Abby. I spoke with the local police chief, Michael Allen, and with Congressman Frank Guinta.
To hear a story like Abby's is just devastating to me, to think that, one of my family members might end up having to go through something like that someday.
Congressman, there's an awful lot of attention being paid to New Hampshire right now. Are you afraid that after the 9th of February, everyone's going to go away and say, okay, it's your problem, not ours?
We have candidates who are even running ads in New Hampshire on this issue. So we feel here in New Hampshire that we've been able to utilize that relationship in the First Nation primary for a good thing.
So what was that like to watch the baby go through withdrawals?
Heartbreaking, and it's hard sometimes, to talk about with people because most people say, well, if you knew them, why did you keep doing it? Why didn't you just stop? And, it's not something that I really had a choice in the matter of. If I could have just stopped, I would have.
The heroin epidemic continues to rage in New Hampshire, even as the presidential candidates are crisscrossing the state. There were 11 overdose deaths this weekend just in the city of Manchester, a city of 100,000 people. 11 overdoses. One of them was fatal. The other 10 were saved by the EMTs. One was fatal, a 27-year-old man who died on Sunday. We just got a call from the mayor of Manchester. There was another victim, a 35-year-old man who died from an overdose just this morning. He, Brett, was the 22nd fatality in the state of New Hampshire just this year alone.
I mean, it's an amazing issue for this small state.